This is a lecture about the Battle of Fallen Timbers, which is a small yet very, very, very significant battle in the larger context of the Northwest Indian Wars. This particular battle took place on August 20th of 1794. I'm going to back up a little bit and talk about what was going on to remind you before the Revolutionary War. So as you recall, the British gained the territory in the Ohio Territory, and there were problems that were established between the settlers that moved across the Appalachians and the Northwest Indian tribes living in that area. So the British, when we were still under British rule, created the Proclamation Line of 1763 to help prohibit settlers from moving into Indian Territory. Well, all of that went away after the Revolutionary War because the British no longer were able to dictate where people moved. They were out of the picture, right? We had won our freedom. And so the Proclamation Line of 1763 went away, which very much concerned the tribes in the Ohio Territory. So large numbers of settlers began moving into the Ohio Territory across the Appalachian Mountains, and the Native American tribes felt that impact. So two gentlemen, Little Turtle, featured here, he was the chief of the Miami Indian tribe, and also Chief Blue Jacket of the Shawnee, they collaborated and they organized the tribes in this area, and they formed the Northwest Indian Confederacy. And that was formed in 1783. Essentially, what this confederacy did was it united the tribes in order to fight against the settlement. You know, they were losing their land, they were losing their way of life, they felt encroached upon, and so they formed this confederacy to fight back. They actually did pretty well in some of the battles. Specifically, they won an earlier battle against General Arthur St. Clair. And when George Washington heard that, the Native Americans in this area were doing well, he decided he had another idea, and I will get to that in a little bit. Okay, a little bit more about the Northwest Indian Confederacy. You can see that this is in this yellow area here. This was the Northwest Territory. These were the tribes. And the Northwest Indian Confederacy was organized, like I said, in 1783, and it ended in 1795 with the Battle of Fallen Timbers. But anyway, here are the members of the tribe, and here's a map. You can see here the Great Lakes, here's Canada. And anyway, so this was the territory that people were moving across the Appalachian Mountains. You can see my cursor here. And that the Proclamation Line of 1763 was no longer there. And so people were moving into this territory specifically. I want to mention this man, Tecumseh. Tecumseh is incredibly important, you guys. He eventually becomes the chief of the Shawnee Indian tribe after Blue Jacket. But he is going to come up in another really important battle called the Battle of Tippecanoe. And he joined the Northwest Indian Confederacy early. He was on board with it. He also fought in the Battle of Fallen Timbers. But he resists some of the treaties that were presented to the Native American tribes. And he also fights back against the American government with regards to giving up land. And that happens in the early 1800s. So I wanted to introduce you to him because you're going to need to know who he is. He's very, very pivotal, and he does quite a bit for the Native American tribes. So keep in mind who he is, Tecumseh, and you will see more of him later. All right, so like I said earlier in this lecture, that George Washington was not happy that his militia was not doing well against the Native Americans, and so he came up with another plan. He sent Mad Anthony Wayne to fight the Native Americans. And General Wayne was a revolutionary hero. He fought in the Battle of Bunker Hill, and I believe he also fought in Saratoga. But he had a very unique style of battle. He was very capable, you guys. He had a unique approach to fighting. He spent time training his soldiers, and he also made sure that they were up to date with the best equipment. And so he was a very, very strong leader, and George Washington knew this. So he sent General Wayne to meet the tribes at Fallen Timbers and to address this Northwest Indian Confederacy, quote unquote, problem. All right. All right, so the Battle of Fallen Timbers took place on August 20th, 1794. It took place in the Ohio Territory. You can go back and look at the map a little bit more if you want to know more about where this actually is. But tribal leaders decided to kind of go there specifically, hoping to ambush the militia, the settlers and the militia. And they chose this area for a very specific reason. This area of Ohio had just been basically torn apart by a tornado, and there were all sorts of fallen trees everywhere, hence fallen timbers, right? This area was very, very difficult to navigate. You know, horses were not able to, of course, get through some of the areas. It was really wooded, and since the trees had fallen, it was very, very dark in some areas. There was a poor line of sight, and it made it an ideal hiding place for the Native Americans. So they went to this specific area, waited, and they were planning to ambush General Wayne and his militia. Okay, well, because General Wayne's troops were so well trained and they had great equipment and they were prepared. Okay, they were very, very well prepared for this battle. And so the battle only lasted 1 hour. And the Native Americans retreated, okay, and they definitely lost this battle. They were easily defeated in the Battle of Fallen Timbers. So that leads us to the Treaty of Greenville that was presented to the Native American tribes in the Northwest Confederacy. And you can see here, this is the line. They gave up so much land, you guys. So this Treaty of Greenville was signed between the United States and the Shawnee and Delaware tribes. The Native Americans were forced to give up 25,000 square miles in the Ohio Territory. I just want you to sit back and think about how much land 25,000 square miles actually is. You guys, it's huge, okay? In exchange for that amount of land, Native Americans, the tribes themselves, they received $20,000 and a promise of peace, which actually did not last very long. And the signing of the Treaty of Greenville was actually the end of the Northwest Indian Confederacy. Okay, not to say that another one wouldn't pop up, but it was at this point in time the end of the Confederacy between these Native American tribes. So hopefully that helps you understand the importance of the Battle of Fallen Timbers and the importance of the Treaty of Greenville.